Hello, and welcome to Plugged In, the podcast where we explore the innovations shaping the EV future. In today's episode, I'll be exploring the EV industry and how Pando is transforming multifamily EV charging infrastructure. We all see it happening. Electric vehicles are no longer a novelty on our streets. They're rapidly becoming the new standard. The shift is happening. But there's a major roadblock. A persistent challenge that's been holding back millions of people from making the switch. I'm talking about multifamily housing, apartments, condos, you name it. In fact, a new report by Canary Media found that while about 1/3 of Americans live in multifamily units, only about 5% of those buildings currently offer on-site EV charging. 5%. That means if you live in an apartment, chances are you've got to rely on public charging or hunt for a fast charger after work. Not exactly the convenient, seamless experience EV ownership promises. And that's a big deal, because charging convenience is one of the biggest deciding factors in whether someone actually buys an EV. If you can't charge at home, you're less likely to go electric. For years, these communities have been stuck in a cycle of frustration. Limited electrical capacity in older buildings, unreliable Wi-Fi in concrete parking garages, the high cost of maintaining complex charging stations, and infrastructure that just can't scale. It's a perfect storm that keeps renters on the sidelines while homeowners reap all the EV benefits. At the same time, the EV industry keeps sprinting ahead. Car manufacturers are rolling out new models every quarter. Public funding for infrastructure is flowing in, and more people are embracing electric as the smarter, more sustainable choice. Just recently, Lyft announced it's passed the milestone of 100 million electric rides, a number that says a lot about how driver perception is changing. What once felt risky is now normal. The challenge, though, is that even as adoption grows, our infrastructure still lags behind. And here's where it gets interesting. Companies and cities around the world are experimenting with creative fixes. Some are embedding chargers into streetlights or curbsides to maximize existing infrastructure. Others are trying out anti-theft cable systems, embedded sensors, and remote diagnostics to protect their hardware. But there's an irony to it all. Every extra smart layer adds another potential failure point. More sensors, more data, more things to maintain. What should be a simple process, plug in and charge, is turning into a juggling act. That's where today's story comes in. Today, we're diving into a company that says it's found a way to make EV charging simple again. Not just smarter, but actually simpler. That company is Pando. They've built what they call a complete ecosystem for multifamily housing, Gen 2, Canopy, Pulse, and Plus, that work together to make charging easy, affordable, and reliable for everyone. And today, we're breaking it all down to see how it works and why it matters. So, where do you start when you're trying to build an EV system from scratch? You start with the foundation, the hardware. For Pando, that's a product called Gen 2. Now, you might be thinking, okay, it's a charger. But Pando's approach is different. The Gen 2 is actually a smart outlet. A rugged 9.6 kilowatt level 2 charging solution designed to be durable and maintenance-free. They built it to last 40 years. That's not a typo. 4 decades of reliable operation. Traditional charging stations often include screens, card readers, and moving parts. Those features sound convenient, but end up causing headaches. Cracked screens, broken cables, network errors, you name it. Each one means another maintenance ticket, another cost. Gen 2 strips all that away. No screens, no moving parts, just a universal, low-cost charging outlet built to do one thing perfectly: always work. With a 99.8% uptime, it's meant to be the dependable backbone of any charging network. Sometimes, innovation isn't about adding more, it's about designing smarter from the start. Okay, so you've got a reliable outlet. Great. But what about connectivity? If you've ever tried to use your phone in a concrete parking garage, you know the struggle. Dead zones everywhere. And many smart chargers depend on a constant internet connection to function. When that connection drops, so does your charging session. This is where Canopy comes in, Pando's connectivity solution. Canopy ensures that Gen 2 outlets work everywhere under any conditions. It's like a safety net for connectivity, with 4 different modes designed to keep charging online no matter what. First, there's online mode, standard Wi-Fi connectivity but enhanced with a mesh network that blankets the garage in a stable, consistent signal. Then there's relay mode, which uses the driver's smartphone as a temporary bridge if Wi-Fi goes down. You start a session, your car charges, and the data syncs once your phone reconnects later. And for the ultimate fallback, there's manual mode, pure tap to charge or single button operation. No Wi-Fi, no cell service, no problem. It's clever, but more importantly, it's resilient. And that resilience is key. Across the EV landscape, smart devices are only as good as the networks behind them. A charger that relies too heavily on Wi-Fi can quickly turn into a paperweight. Canopy's offline-first design acknowledges a reality that many overlook. Not every building has great connectivity, and not every system should depend on it. Now, let's tackle the elephant in the room: electrical capacity. Most apartment buildings, especially older ones, were never built to handle dozens of cars drawing power at once. Their panels are already juggling HVAC systems, lighting, elevators, and everything else that keeps the building running. Upgrading that infrastructure can cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, sometimes even millions. And in dense cities, physical space for new electrical equipment simply doesn't exist. So how do you make large-scale EV charging possible without massive upgrades? Enter Pulse. Pulse essentially turns the entire building into a smart power system. It monitors real-time electrical usage right at the main panel, then dynamically allocates power to the chargers. Imagine it like an air traffic controller for electricity. When the building's demand is low, say overnight, Pulse directs more power to the EVs. When demand spikes during the day, it automatically throttles charging to protect the grid. This kind of load management isn't just convenient, it's essential. Across the industry, utilities and grid operators are warning that unmanaged EV charging could strain local systems during peak hours. That's why we're seeing such a big push for smart charging, the ability to distribute power intelligently based on real-time demand. In some ways, Pulse is tapping into a larger shift. Buildings and vehicles are becoming active parts of the energy ecosystem, not just consumers of it. They communicate, adapt, and balance one another to keep the grid stable. It's the same logic behind new energy programs popping up across the country, using data to manage when and how we charge so the grid stays strong. So we've got Gen 2 for reliability, Canopy for connectivity, and Pulse for power management. What's the final piece? Flexibility. Pando calls it Plus, a modular charging cable that snaps directly into a Gen 2 outlet. Here's how it works. A building can start by installing low-cost Gen 2 outlets at every parking space. That alone gives residents access to charging as long as they have their own cable. Then, as more residents switch to EVs or as visitor demand grows, property managers can simply add the Plus module to those outlets. It's a smart way to scale without rebuilding everything. And it also solves another big pain point: cable maintenance. In traditional setups, if a cable breaks, you're waiting weeks for parts and repairs. With Plus, a damaged cable can be swapped out in seconds. No downtime, no angry residents. This flexible approach reflects something we're seeing everywhere in the EV world: the move toward upgradable infrastructure. Instead of building static systems that get outdated, the focus is shifting to scalable, adaptable ones that grow with demand. As EV ownership rises, flexibility isn't just a perk, it's the key to long-term sustainability. So now let's take a step back. Each piece, Gen 2, Canopy, Pulse, and Plus, tackles a specific real-world challenge. Gen 2 delivers universal, maintenance-free charging. Canopy keeps it connected in any environment. Pulse manages power intelligently without costly upgrades. And Plus makes the system modular and easy to expand. Together, they form an ecosystem that's simpler, more affordable, and more reliable than trying to piece together a bunch of separate products. And that simplicity is exactly what's needed right now. Because while EV adoption is booming, infrastructure hasn't caught up.
The federal rollout of a national charging network has faced delays and scrutiny, with some reports showing that only a handful of stations have been fully deployed under programs launched years ago. It's a reminder that the hardware side of this revolution is still finding its footing. Meanwhile, cities around the world are getting creative, repurposing streetlights, parking meters, and even utility poles as charging stations. It's a fascinating experiment in how we can retrofit the spaces we already have to support electric mobility. We're witnessing a turning point. Charging is moving from being a luxury to a public utility, something as common and expected as having a light switch. And the multifamily segment, apartments, condos, shared communities, is the next big frontier. That's where solutions like Pandos fit in. They make it possible for buildings of all ages and sizes to participate in this shift without breaking the bank or tearing out their electrical systems. So why does all this matter? Because EV adoption isn't just about the cars. It's about access, convenience, equity. For property owners, a system like Pando's means lower costs, happier residents, and fewer headaches. For residents, it means the freedom to charge at home, the same freedom single-family homeowners already enjoy. And for asset managers and city planners, it means progress that's actually scalable. At a time when governments are pouring billions into clean energy infrastructure, it's these kinds of practical, scalable solutions that will determine how quickly we get there. And the signs are everywhere. Grants and incentive programs are expanding to cover multifamily properties. Cities are updating building codes to require EV-ready parking in new developments. Even utilities are starting to design rate structures that reward off-peak charging, all of it aimed at making EV ownership easier and more affordable for everyone. So, as we look ahead, it's clear that the question isn't whether multifamily EV charging will become standard, it's how quickly we'll get there and how thoughtfully we'll build it. Pando's message fits right into that momentum. This isn't just about chargers. It's about rethinking how buildings use power, how infrastructure is deployed, and how communities prepare for an electric future. By combining Gen Q, Canopy, Pulse, and Plus, Pando has created a platform that makes EV charging accessible to every apartment and condo. It's the kind of groundwork that will help turn multifamily housing from a bottleneck into a catalyst for EV adoption. And maybe that's the best way to sum it up. The electric future isn't coming, it's already here. That's all the time we have for today on Plugged In. Thanks for tuning in.